Okay, here we are in front of we're in front of the United Nations. This is Manisha Lievin. He's been coming up for a full month going into the UN for various meetings on human rights and other sustainable developments and other topics. And he's one of our favorite activists that comes through. An expert on Burundi, obviously, but on other things. And so here we go. What's been going on this month here in the UN? Since I can't go in, I'm going to ask you.
Yes, Mr. Murphy. I had an opportunity, like I said, to come and kind of like further my activities here in the United Nations. But there's nothing really. There's not a lot going on in there. We attended a lot of meetings, especially on the SDGs, social development goals in 2030. But my real concerns was not about the development in the country. I'm an activist from Burundi, and they're talking about development. Why that we don't even have peace?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just develop when you don't have the right of the right to be who you are and to wake up tomorrow and the right to life. It's not there, so there's no development that can happen.
I had thought this whole month I've been unable to go in, but about every 3 months they have a meeting on Burundi in the Security Council. Often it's a closed meeting. They have this guy Kafando. Did you hear anything about anything the UN is doing on Burundi during your month here?
For the month that I've been here, there was not anything that was mentioned on Burundi. I was able to.
Sorry, audience, but this is the First Avenue Studios of Inner City Press.
I was able to attend the Security Council meetings.
Oh.
And many of those were just on DRC. I think they were touched on Chad as well.
Yep.
Was it Chad? Yeah, the Sub-Sahel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
G5 Sahel.
I never heard anything on Burundi. That's what I was really looking for, that they might just raise a question on Burundi and see how we can intervene. With a chance that we could use, for me just to go in and maybe through major groups and make sure that I represent the youth and everything and put forward my concerns on Burundi. But I had no other chances that there was nothing on Burundi really being spoken.
I'll give you two examples. One of the events this month was something called the High Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development.
I attended.
Exactly. So because it was outside of the UN, I was able to go and speak with the Swiss Minister of the Environment and Communications. And they made me wait. I waited, same phone. I interviewed her, and I said, so your commitment to sustainable development, how is it related to Switzerland being the chair of the Burundi peace-building configuration? How is this sustainable, this type of multiple terms for Nkurunziza, crackdown on all opposition? The ambassador cut in and said, no, this is not related. These are not related. How can you have sustainable development if you have a dictatorship?
That's what I say. My intervention in all the meetings that I attended on SDGs were just to ask them, how can we have the SDGs Agenda 2030 without having peace in Burundi? There is a priority. Right now on Burundi, what we need to find a permanent peaceful solution to Burundi, and then we can talk about development. So I was blown away. It's kind of business going on. They don't care really. What they care about is just, advancing the agenda and make sure that the businessman comes in and money is flowing. But they're not really taking into consideration what countries are going through. I think if SDGs going to work, they'll work with countries that are peaceful, countries that are running well, with presidents who respect the terms, presidents who respect the human rights of the people, but not in the case of Burundi right now.
I'll tell you, having covered the UN, a little bit of Kofi Annan, Ban Ki-moon, and now Antonio Guterres, it's worse than it's ever been. There's a split. There's a total split between the happy talk about development and the 2030 agenda and the total failure to stand up to dictators. And it seems like, I'm not saying there's some countries that are getting better, but it's no thanks to the UN. Eritrea, Ethiopia, it's happened, no thanks to the UN. I look at Cameroon, and inside the building they have a deputy called Amina Mohammed. She's in charge of the environment and sustainable development. There's no connection to the other part of the world.
I actually met her.
Okay.
I took a picture with her.
We
were just,
she's thought of very well.
We were talking on the finance of this SDGs.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's really spreading this. The dictatorship, this not wanting to solve the solutions. I think Nkurunziza has become now a contagious virus around the region and around Africa. They are not doing that. They are not doing anything. Stopping Nkurunziza means that means peace for Africa, means peace for the whole region. Otherwise, you see in Tanzania, Magufuli saying that CCM is going to stay there. You see in Congo with President Joseph Kabila trying to do whatever,
Look at Cameroon. Look at Cameroon. 36 years.
Cameroon. I mean,
36 years.
It's a contagious, disease that they need to stop. And I understand from a perspective, having Nkurunziza up to now, running the country after being found maybe guilty of serious crimes that was committed against the humanity, but nothing really being done. I mean, why not these other guys? Why should they worry? He's the king. He's the king in the region. He's the crown king that they look up at all dictators and say, yeah, he's the man. Yeah. We gotta learn from him. Yeah. We don't listen to the West anymore. We don't listen to the world or the international community. Let's do what we got to do. But they are just really abusing their own people.
In fairness, just to say it, it's not just Africa. Today I wrote a story about the election in Cambodia. Right. There's a guy called Hun Sen. He's been in power 30 years. They just had an election on Sunday, and Guterres from vacation, Antonio Guterres, put out a statement saying, very, very general, hoping for this and that. The ruling party claimed that they won all 125 seats that were up for election. It's not an election. And yet the UN gives its blessing, some little mealy-mouthed statement. It's garbage.
That's my problem as well. I mean, I have a statement that I'm trying to push in today. I hope that I will reach the African Union office.
Good.
Here.
Sure. 47.
One of the parties, they're reworking the United Nations and the African Union are kind of working behind curtains, pushing the Burundians against the wall to accept the 2020 elections that were proposed by a terror government, that were proposed by Nkurunziza as a peaceful solution. But how can we have, like you were saying on Cambodia, how can we have peaceful elections with someone who's just holding hostage, I mean, all his citizens, someone who's just, doing whatever that he wants? He will win the elections again, or even if that he might just, he said that he's going to step down. We talked about that the last time.
Sure.
But stepping down does not mean that he won't be in control.
Totally.
He has already the country manipulated. He has everything in his hands.
I think the UN is now using peacekeepers from Cambodia in the same way they use them from Burundi. I mean, this is one of the problems that the UN has, is that they're rewarding with money and prestige these same guys because they need peacekeepers so much, but in fact, in many cases, the peacekeepers are deployed to no good end. They commit sexual abuse. They brought cholera to Haiti. So it's not even clear that they're basically paying Peter to play Paul. They don't want to criticize these dictatorships because they say they need the troops to go help somewhere else. Everywhere they go, they're failing. It's time to start anew and say, don't do it if you can't do it right, basically. First, do no harm.
I understand. I mean, I've heard many concerns about it. I have really, spoken against this military use. I mean, I told you the last time that, the use of this military is just turning our military into a mercenary kind of.
Yeah, they're for rent.
They're no longer really pledging on their country.
Right.
But they pledge on the United Nations and protect their own rights, the rights of the United Nations, instead of just protecting our lands and protecting our people. You can't tell me how we have these people, these soldiers going to Somalia. I think that Somalia now is in a good shape than Burundi. Right. But we have our people now going to defend Somalia. Yeah. I'm not saying that we shouldn't just be really looking at Somalia and helping Somalia. We love Somalia and we would love to have peace. But Burundi as well has troubles.
My understanding, not to be said,
Car the same way. Is having problems. But we should solve. Like you're saying, when you give this money to these dictators, they use it for their own advantage, and that's one of my resolutions. On this piece of paper, they need to shift all this. They need to cut off all these aid in all the forms that they come in, such as the peacekeeping missions. If they cut off, you won't have money to pay.
And that's not cutting off. And that's not cutting off humanitarian aid. That's saying we're not going to reward the very same soldiers that are killing people, or allow absolutely. Because just to be aware, all the money that's paid to the government doesn't get turned over to the soldier. They take a percentage and they keep it.
We're reporting on that, and I can come in here speaking always trying to compromise with people when our people are not having a real solution. That would be just like looking for a post here. Yeah. I'm not looking for a post. I'm looking for peace. Right. That's why I'm telling you.
Yeah. No. So I know that you'd wanted to say something about the. My right now I'm focused on the UN. It's unbelievably corrupt. It's censorship. They've hit a new low recently. But I know that you'd wanted to say something on the African Union, which sometimes the UN hides behind it and says, "Oh no, we're partnering." I know that the President of the Peace and Security Council of African Union, you recently went to Cameroon. Same game with Paul Biya. Golden statue. No comments on Anglophone
there's a shame
murder.
on the African Union. I'm not just attacking any country or anything, but they need to change their behavior. They need to change the way how they do things.
Right.
I mean, when like we have an issue going on in the UN Security Council, talking about an African country like Congo having problems, but having an African Union representative saying that all is well, I think that we are just moving in the right direction.
Yep.
But we have in countries like Poland really pushing, saying like we need to take embargoes, on the arms embargoes against these countries because they are just violating human rights. But we have our own people who are supposed even to further our cause, who are supposed to be our voices, coming in here and saying, "Oh, all is well." So my calling to the African Union is like, if they want to have it, it's not for the all men, it's for all the generations.
Right.
And they need to think about it. What they're doing, they're not doing it in the name of all the people, especially the young people. They're not doing it in the right. I mean, we could have been having peace, but when they come here, it's not what they told.
What I look on is like, I think the current
relationship between the institutions so that money can keep flowing, which is not the right thing to do.
The current sort of head of the Peace and Security Commission, the guy who goes around, he's an ex-foreign minister of Chad, or maybe he's still the foreign minister of Chad. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, he seems like I've asked him questions before I was thrown out of the UN, but the reality is Chad, like Cameroon, has a guy who's been in power 30 years. Dibby. In fact, Debbie's part of a UN corruption. When I say corruption, I don't just mean it generally. I mean, there's a guy in jail downtown, Patrick Ho of the China Energy Fund Committee. He's charged with, based on emails and everything, no rumor. He transferred money to Sam Kutesa, who's the foreign minister of Uganda, who was the PGA, president of the General Assembly at the time, and to the government of Idris Deby in Chad for oil concessions, straight up bribery. So it's not surprising. It's to say, I don't know how they have to do it, but if people are mad that Syria was going to be the head of the Commission on Disarmament or Saudi Arabia on the Human Rights Council, you got to take a look at who's running the show. I mean, if it's somebody who comes from a 30-year president, maybe it's no surprise they back up a 36-year president or a wannabe 30-year president. It's a problem.
They won't do anything. So anyway, the thing is like on Burundi again.
Sure, please.
I'm still just talking on the African Union part. I think that especially the region, Matthew, I mean, they haven't done anything.
Yep.
This is from 2015 on Burundi, having a president who's just doing whatever that he wants. And we have in just this African Union saying nothing, but rather than just, compromising with him and just, painting his face off with just good pictures and stuff, saying that you're just moving on the right direction. Instead of just standing, what are they standing for? What are they standing for if they can't just solve even their own problems?
But
it's a shame that I have to come to the United Nations.
Yeah.
I wish that I was going to the African Union, but I think that they're not even ready to receive people.
But what about the East Africa community? Isn't it? I mean,
African community, it's totally destroyed. I don't think about it. It's all about money. I mean, they're taking advantage on Burundi. I mean, when Burundi goes down, it's all about trade.
Yeah.
When Burundi goes down,
this guy is making money. Mkapa is taking $500 a day.
Down, I mean, these countries are just developing.
Yeah.
They don't care about Burundi.
Right.
And especially, like I said, he's a good teacher. He's teaching them how to be rude and very tough on their people. So they're taking like a crown king for the region, which I think I would go on the AS, East African community, act like ECOWAS did when Gambia, in case of Yahya Jammeh. You know what happened? That was the first move that we ever saw in Africa. That was the rigid thing to do. And we were expecting that Tanzania, Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda do the same thing on Burundi. This guy, it's just a small country. We're not saying that they should just violate the sovereignty, but R2Ps, whatever they are there, when the president is not able to take care of his people, there is an argument that they can just get in and intervene, which they never did, just because I think they want to just tend to become like Peter Nkurunziza. And we had the Raila Odinga, I think, visiting Nkurunziza.
I gotta check that out.
I don't know if it's Raila or the other one.
Right, Kenyatta. They're trying to go. Wait, hang on.
I think he was the one.
He's trying to win some prize. He wants. Now he's becoming a diplomat.
It's a shame. How do you go see Burundi? What are you learning from Burundi?
It's terrible.
I mean, it's a really terrible situation. So.
I want to ask. I know your colleagues got it. So I want to. What about the refugees that are in Tanzania? This is a very pressing issue. What's the situation?
That's a very great question, and I actually want to raise this awareness that I think the United Nations need to do something. There is not. According to agreements, international agreements, they're not supposed really to force anyone to force refugees back into the country. And this is what's happening. They actually really like Burundi and Tanzania have really like strong ties, which I don't know how it went. Between him and Magufuli, probably. They've been trying to help him out. Pushing in the refugees will give him another kind of layer.
It'll show, absolutely. It'll say everything is back to normal. Everything is back to normal.
You know, but these people are not going back because they want. They're going back because they are being forced.
Sure.
And this is against the international laws.
Absolutely.
Of the United Nations.
And Antonio Guterres supposedly was the head of UNHCR. He said, I emailed from this very bench right here. I emailed them a question, said, what is the UN saying about this? He said, our principal misspelled position is no one should be pushed back. Well, they're letting it happen. They let it happen. They let it happen to Cameroon too. I'm working on that a lot these days. 47 people, leaders of the opposition, sent back and put directly in jail, and they had asylum. They were refugees. So it's just let's keep our eye on that.
Our call is that they shouldn't just do that.
Yep. I heard they closed down their stores. They're already starting to crack that.
Yeah, they're already doing that. We asked the Tanzanian government to remember that. Besides even international whatever laws, they are our neighbor.
Absolutely. They hosted Arusha. They did all of this stuff.
They shouldn't be treating our people like that.
Yeah.
If people do not want, they can go back in. We know what country. Even people who are inside want to go out, but they don't have any way because the country is already like encircled them. There's no way how you can get out.
Yep.
The government is making sure that there are no refugees in order to keep its reputation. But we ask the Tanzanian government again to think about it and rethink about it. What goes around comes around.
Yep.
Today's us, tomorrow is them.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to end it this way. I didn't do it the first time, but I feel that we have to. Here we go. We're going to end. Hopefully, this will end up well.
Right,
this has been the second, and there'll be more. It might be in the street. It might be in the UN. It might be at the African Union.
Yes,
nobody knows where it is, but keep it up. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much. I understand it, and I wish that they restore office, but either they do it.
Not even an office. I can't even get inside the building. I'm banned.
You're still doing your work.
Yeah,
so
you got to do it.
I'm proud of you. You keep your work going on.
Okay.